Hey everybody, I'm Jesse,
And I'm Addie.
and we just finished watching The Wild Robot. Man, does this movie hit home.
Very
if
emotional.
if you
Or
have
a
any if you're an adult
Yeah.
that uses the term adulting, this movie's gonna hit home. But before we get into the nitty gritty, just a quick, I guess, recap of the film without like spoiling anything, right? We're talking about a robot here who's made to like support humanity.
Kind of like Baymax, but
yeah.
more functional.
Think, oh yeah, like Baymax or iRobot also, because we find out, you know, the world isn't what we know anymore. But this robot is made to help humanity, made to be like a pretty much
Butler,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. A butler is a better term for it. And she is kind of like shipwrecked and ends up on an island that's
Uninhabited.
uninhabited. There we go, by humans. And she comes upon a child,
Offspring.
a baby bird that she then has to nurture and take care of.
Learn how to.
And this
nurture.
is exactly, and this is her journey of basically,
Motherhood.
yeah, literally, of becoming a mother and learning to be a mother without having that programming, right? So becoming human,
As normal. As per usual.
becoming human in a way, right? So it's very touching, very emotional. Without getting into that yet, it's extremely, very
Yeah.
touching. It hits home for a lot of reasons. But I do want to say, I feel like, at least from my point of view, I feel like these unique story movies don't get enough attention sometimes. Like, it's not your next Despicable Me. No one's like, oh, have you seen Migration? Have you seen The Wild Robot? No one's talking about
They're
it. And
not like funny.
They're not.
They're heart wrenching. They're traumatic. They're
And
emotional.
I think the only reason I bring up this topic is I feel like they deserve some more love. I'm sure they'll break even in the box office and they're gonna do good and everything, and everybody's it's gonna, you know, be another check mark in these actors' filmography. But I don't know. I would like to see these movies get some more love, some more attention.
I would love a part 2.
But yeah, in the term of unique, I mean, you know, like it's not a part 2, it's not a sequel, it's not a reimagining. It's a totally unique story. So
I think
in that
it's
sense,
based on a book.
Is it?
From what the credits said, it's based on something, but it was going too fast. So it's not like
disregard what I said. Then
Brain
clearly I
original.
wasn't paying attention. In my book, it's a unique story, unique movie.
But that just goes to show that it didn't get that much attention as a book. So they turned it into a movie and it got more attention.
Yeah, but it definitely deserves, you know, eyes on the screen because it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing about this film that I'm sure a lot of people would have noticed straight off the bat from trailers, it's going in that direction of that 2D art, hand-drawn style that everybody's trying to do right now.
Wish was trying to do?
Yes, but they did it in a totally weird way
Yeah.
that no one agreed on. No one liked it.
No.
But ever since, of course, Spider-Verse, we've seen this epidemic of everybody trying to do their own way of comic art, hand-drawn, flat, mixed
media.
in with 3D. Yeah, mixed media. There you go. Perfect. But this movie, I think, has been... I haven't seen the latest Puss in Boots yet that came out that did the same art style. Everybody said that one was really good. So I don't want to say this one is the best. But in my book, from what I've seen, it's the best up there with like Spider-Verse use of that medium. It wasn't at any point too distracting. And one of the most beautiful things that I really enjoyed, and I hope I'm right about it, but at least to me it looked like everything that's nature or organic is very much like hand-drawn. Looks like either paintbrushy, looks almost flat at times if you look close enough, except for everything that's man-made. Everything that's man-made is solid. Of course, the texture, like painted over, they get mud or something, is, you know, that hand-drawn style, but the overall design is flat because it's like man-made, it's machine.
Yeah.
So it's like, I liked that interesting distinction about it.
Yeah, I didn't super notice it until there's a scene where the robot has some like plant or moss like growing on her, and then you can kind of like see that it's like, hand drawn, and I didn't notice it. I don't think it was like a big thought in my brain, but I was just like, oh, cool, it looks like color pencil.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But in terms of the story, also, it's at the beginning. I was like, oh, it's that stigma, like kind of like unexpected parents. They come, two separate people come together to take care of this small child. You see it very often in movies, but it doesn't just work off that one thing, which I thought was great. Because if you had just that one thing, it would have felt like, oh, it was still emotional, it was touching, but it would have been like, oh, it's the usual, But it had other things going for it as well.
Yeah, the story was more developed. You didn't just get from point A to point B and then the movie ended. They give us maybe a point C and a point D to consider and cry about.
Yep. And on that topic of crying, man, did we cry.
I think I cried like 4 times. It was very emotional, very touching.
Even in parts, I was at the beginning where it was, and I wouldn't say the beginning, but like early on in the film when it wasn't even truly being emotional yet. I wasn't ready.
We were just getting bullied.
I was just choking up already, and I was like, bro, this is everything that you imagine a mom goes through, raising a kid from being oh my gosh, this adorable little thing to the kid becomes a snotty teenager,
an ungrateful runt.
Yes, and then becomes a grateful adult kind of thing. It takes you through that whole journey, and man, it's touching.
Cycle
I think
of your 20s.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, when we were leaving the theater, I heard it was pretty clear. There was plenty of people going and I was like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. But it was touching.
Yeah, very touching, very touching. I don't want to say it puts things into perspective because I feel like I've already had that perspective, but if you're
it brings it back.
Yeah,
it's
it brings
do you remember?
It back. I'm yes, I do, top of mind, but I feel like it's a good coming of age movie if you're in your early 20s and you're still angsty. I feel like it might give you some things to think about.
You might leave that film being like, Mom, I love you. I haven't told you enough that I love you. I know, total sidetrack, but A Quiet Place made me feel like that about my dad. We left the theater, I told my dad, I was I love you, Dad.
Too. He's like, okay. Go watch the movie again. You clearly didn't get the point.
But yeah, I don't know how much else we can describe how touching it is without going into too much detail, but just basically if you grew up with your mom and your dad, or just your mom, and you had you spent your early 20s with them, and you had some sort of relationship, and you see yourself in these shoes, in the shoes. Because it's kind of that a mother gives all for her children, and she just puts herself out there regardless
mom.
regardless of whatever's gonna happen to her. If it means breaking a leg, losing a foot,
putting the kid first,
yeah, exactly, putting them first, and it's the entire movie is almost that, just putting the child before herself. And she learns that as she's, I keep saying this, but becoming human, because she's gaining emotion and feeling, and yeah,
very touching. I also want to shout out the music. I think the score that they used they used it very well. It was very the wave of emotion was going up. It was uplifting, but then in an emotional way. I don't know. Yeah. They also used it at very specific scenes where there was a part, I think towards the beginning, where there wasn't a lot of words, and I thought it was just gonna be kind of a silent film. There was sounds, but there wasn't words being spoken. And then the beautiful music came through, and it was just very emotional. And I was like, wow, the music person did really well here.
I wonder who scored it. I didn't pay attention to who scored the film.
They said the name. I didn't recognize it.
Yeah. Another thing I thought about was I thought that too. I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be just the robot surviving in the woods.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the trailer, they did it, as far as I remember, they don't ever show what happens. They just show the robot trying to survive, but they never show how the robot
interesting.
Can, or if she does communicate with the animals. I don't want to spoil anything, but they never elaborate on that. So I did think we were kind of walking into just like, oh, this robot's gonna be silly with these animals or something. I don't know what I was expecting. But yeah, I wonder. Let me see if I can see real quick who composed, or who scored it, because that would be. It might not even be a big name. Who scored? Chris Bowers. I'm sure he's done other stuff, but yeah, the music was. Had to search that on the spot. I was curious who it was. But yeah, and our own little child is here to join us. Oh no,
she's asleep.
But yeah, overall, very touching movie. I think I never got us to the ratings. Do you want to go first or I go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Okay. I need to break it down into categories now. I want to say 10 out of 10. It was a very beautiful movie. I liked the plot. I didn't think it was like cliche-y. I thought the use of music was great. I'll say like 10 out of 10 in an animated, like, family-friendly movie. I don't think it's like my favorite movie overall, but I think it did great for what it was.
Nice. I too would have to just say 10 out of 10. I'm a sucker for these like emotional family type movies, like Migration also had me ballin'.
I'll say this one's better than Migration.
Yeah, in terms of like emotionalness, and like they both focus on like family or a parent and like what they do and all that, like for their children. But yeah, this one was I would say more touching than Migration. Both still good films in their own sense, but both equally I would say as funny. This one was also super funny.
They had a couple of really
you'll
funny...
be crying,
and
then they'll like crack a joke the second afterwards, and I'm like,
they knew what they were doing.
Like, what?
Had to reel us back in.
We were talking about this when we got out of the film. Like, they don't shy away. They don't show it on screen, but they don't shy away from death. They're just like, or they'll either say it or it'll happen, and it's just like, oh, like they actually like shit like. A character died, you know. It's rare in these. I feel like it's a family or a children cartoon, you know. They don't really, even when it's like animal related or something, they don't talk about or show death. And in this one they kept bringing out death, and I was like, oh, like
they're a little morbid.
Animals are dying in this film. But beyond the point. 10 out of 10. Fantastic film. Definitely worth the watch. Go support it in theaters if you can or have the time. It's a fantastic film. It's beautiful, emotional, touching. I can't emphasize that enough. It's a wonderful film. I'd watch it again, and I'd cry again.
Watch it again. Yeah,
I'd cry again.
We'll be prepared.
Yeah, take tissue box.
Yeah, tissue box
to cry. But yeah, if you check it out, do go check it out and let us know what you think in the comments down below. Till next time.